I'm just going to duplicate the layer just so I have a copy of it to build up on there. And you're trying to build this up so you can even go to the crop tool and make sure this is set to foreground background and just give yourself a little bit more space to start off with. Top to bottom, double click on it, and I'm just going to put a new layer behind it and fill it full of white. So what you have is this image, and trying to select parts of it. So I'm going to take this first part and just go to layer and cut it, and it puts it on a separate layer, so if I hid this you can see that top part. Go back to the same section. I'm going to make that as the selection. Allows me to just to move it over with the shift key and make sure that I have it. And again, layer new and cut it. So now I have these two parts on separate layers. Just go back to this layer and then just make a selection for this one here. So depending on it, you might have a little bit of white space around it. So I'll see how that goes. Okay, so now when I do this, I might have a little extra here. So all you're doing is very similar to a previous design. Just take the top one, and I'm just going to show the controls so I can just rotate it and kind of position this up here. While it's in there, Command allows me to distort it very quickly and kind of adjust this perspective and click OK. So now that makes it pretty easy. The second one, same idea. I can free transform that and just rotate it around a little bit. Put it right up on the edge. Grab the midpoint. Okay. And again, it doesn't have any ruler guides, but I can hit the option to kind of taper it. Do a little bit of the perspective and label it in like that. Hit return. And then just do the same for the last piece. Now depending on how much of this has been cut, here's this part, which is the transform holding down the middle, and I can also taper this in just a little bit for the perspective of that piece. So there might be a little overlap, but that can be filled in with the gap that comes through with it. Here's the background piece, and now I have that section. So you can kind of see there's kind of almost a built-in space in there, but I can just adjust it with the arrow key, moving that over a little bit. Okay, and then the idea of doing the reflection, pre-transforming this, I can still arch that just a little bit, and so that's just a matter of taking this piece and duplicating it, pre-transforming it, and if you remember, edit, transform, flip it vertical, sets us down here. And I can take the center point and put it right on the corner, and then when I hold the command key, it'll go from that center point out, and it automatically builds that section to it pretty quickly. So it's not too difficult, just trying to get it, kind of presented it before, just adjust the layer, edit, transform, flip vertical, drop this down here. Here's the center point, and command to click on this side to adjust it in there. So that gives you the reflective surface, at least to get you started, and then with both of these they're copies, so there's the gradient with the foreground, the transparent. So here's this one. When you click on it, it's going from a linear gradient, so you can adjust it right from there, and it makes it much easier. Trying to build that part up. So again, trying to use the reflective surfaces of that to help you with that design helps you get it set up. You can take this layer and also minimize the opacity of it. So that's going to help keep it as a reflective surface. And going above this, we're getting a new layer. I'm just going to type this edges. And this is the part where you can take the brush with a default to the white, make it a bracket with a smaller brush, and just click and shift key across. Again, you can increase this part, and it creates that cardboard edge. So here's the beginning of it. It's pretty bright. Do the layer mask. Here's the brush. And just softening it up. Gives it that piece. This part I'm just going to clip off onto the back. But that'll give you the beginning. Again, as you go through some of this layout, if I give it a new layer and a reflection, this is kind of headed off this distance, so I might come into this part. I drop a color that's in the composition already, and that'll give you a section, and you can make it a gradient section. Just go foreground to transparent this time. So depending on how you see this part in the back, and you can also blur this part with the blur tool, just kind of stretching it across. And again, just kind of giving it another piece, subtracting it a little bit. Change this to transparent again. And the only trick is that you now have a couple segments on there to show both panels, so you have the option to pick one of them. And then taking the pen tool, when you take a look, here's a path. So when you take a look in your paths palette, this is tissue there. So you can see that part of it there. So layer, just going to give it a new layer at the top. And here's the path. Hit default. So that'll give you a little bit to work with, and now you have this section on the top. Here's the locking the pixels with the brush. Trying to build some of that up there for you. Let's see how you do, and that'll give you a little bit of a texture to it. Trying to illustrate it there. And keep in mind, you can take this selection on this part. You can move the selection.
Use your restroom.
There's that piece. And since it's selected, I can just inverse the selection and hide the edges so you can start to see it a little bit. There you go.